Hi everyone, it's John again, and this time we've got our indie entrepreneur guest, Lauren Brim. She will be talking about basically her background, not only as an author and filmmaker and dancer, artist, but also in addition, she's now a new mom. So before we dive right into that, Lauren, if you would you share with the folks a little bit about yourself? Just let us know, like, kind of what you're about and kind of how you got to where you are right now.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. And I guess my journey started as a dancer, dancing in my house, in my living room, creating shows with the local kids in the neighborhood and putting together, just all of my creative ideas, whether it was starting little businesses or putting on shows in my house. And then I decided I wanted to be a professional dancer when I was a teenager. I moved to New York City and danced there for a number of years. And while I was there, I got really interested in alternative healthcare. And that became my passion, really understanding what causes us to get sick, what causes us to get injured, and really understanding the psychology behind wellness and disease. So it seemed like I really left sort of the artistic life at that point. I really was focused on business after all those years being a poor, starving artist. I was like, I want to make money. So I really, really, really want to make money, especially after living in New York where, you really see what money can buy.
Mm.
But I moved back to California. I wanted to be near the beach. And I've just sort of done this dance, this flow back and forth between growing different businesses and that artistic side of me coming out and wanting to, I wrote a book last year and I made a couple short films and my businesses are, they're very creative as well. And I've danced with some companies while I've been out here in LA, but I've just found a really nice balance, I think, between being able to make money and a fulfilling career that still leaves me time to create in the way that I want.
Definitely. So in terms of the health aspects and stuff, that's basically been a business that's provided you a living while you're pursuing these artistic projects. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely feel very lucky that I love the work so much. And the work itself is really creative. Helping people
Mm.
work on their health stuff is actually creative. And I think any good physician or alternative practitioner, they're not just working in a very linear way. They're really trying to understand the whole picture and looking from multiple angles and really seeing that client, that patient in front of them. So it is very creative work. But really, when I wrote my book and made my films, a lot of the money that went into that was from my business. So it does
Mm.
definitely work that way, that it helps feed those projects.
Definitely. And it's interesting how, as an artist or creative different times, we sometimes get to the point that like we've realized, oh shoot, like I love my art, I'm passionate about it, but I've got to make a living, like you said. And so striking that balance is definitely a challenge that a lot of creative entrepreneurs also face. So how do you kind of like find what it is that like will inspire you as well though as an artist as a creative? What kind of things draw you to, like, for example, the book you wrote, the New Rules of Sex? What was it that drew you toward that subject?
I think my whole life's journey drew me towards that subject. I grew up in a very Christian household, and there were a lot of sort of rules about sex and when you were allowed to have it, and so I really sort of followed that model up until my early 20s when my paradigm started shifting around it. And then it wasn't until my late 20s when, after attending many births here in Los Angeles and in New York, I thought I wanted to be a midwife. So I went to midwifery school and signed up and paid the money and started doing the classes. And while I was there, I was watching how the midwives were talking to women about their
Mm.
sexual and reproductive health, because midwives can also do well women's care. And
Mm.
I was really shocked that nobody seemed to see the connection between what women thought and felt about sex and their sexual history, with partners or with their culture, and the health of their reproductive system and their sexual organs. And I thought, how can we not be seeing the connection here? It became really apparent to me that even healthcare practitioners and therapists weren't very comfortable with the subject of sexuality. So if you're not comfortable with the subject of sexuality, the patient or client is definitely not going to be comfortable talking about their sexual history with you, especially when they feel so much judgment. And so I became really aware, oops, sorry, my mic is sort of falling out. I became really aware that there was so much sexual suppression of you know, in our culture in general, but especially of female sexuality, so a lot of cultural suppression. And I wanted to write a book about that and sort of talk about where do all these ideas around sexuality come from, and are they true, or have we just been, is this a story we've been perpetuating, and so we've all just been raised with this, and so we just accept it as truth. And I also really felt my book is half academic and it's half memoir, and of course that's the part where, you know, you wake up in the middle of the night and go, what did I do? Why did I write a sexual memoir? Am I insane? Like, you can never erase that, you know? And yet I felt so inspired for a year to tell that story, because I felt like if we're going to have the conversation, you know, I have to be the first one to talk about it. And how we normalize things is to talk about them, and how we make sex normal and okay and a healthy part of the human experience is to talk about it very, very frankly and passionately, and tell the bad stories and tell the good stories, and talk about what worked and talk about when it didn't work, and share our journeys with each other. And so that's really what inspired me to write that book. It's sort of a combination of what I saw in my midwifery training and my own sort of journey and pain with sex and relationships and trying to understand it all.
Yeah, I mean, sharing our own personal story takes a lot of courage, but at the same time though, it's really important, because that's the things that people really resonate with, and so that's definitely one of the reasons why we're on here. The thing is that, like, you know, recently I've been a huge fan of Masters of Sex, and I don't know if you're familiar with that series, but they really touch on just that intersection of, you know, between the different kind of paradox and just the different contradictions that we have with sex, and meanwhile it's such a natural, you know, part of life. I mean, it's you know, we all come from the process, right? In other words, none of us are here without going through that, of being, you know, the process of reproduction, of you know, birth and stuff. And they even one of the things the series touches on is also how, you know, even though like we've come a long way, there's still, you know, this kind of you know, all these double standards and that kind of thing, and that's a big part of the series. And one of the key areas was this provost who is, you know, a homosexual, and because of that, you know, like, it was all the different problems that he ran into because of that. And I know that in your recent film project, that's one of the key topics, is just addressing with these different issues that we have with equality, and with the different kind of prejudices that are still exist with sex, even as, you know, we've supposedly gone so much further along and stuff. We're so much more progressive and everything. So can you talk a little bit about some of the different things that you were hoping to achieve with, or that you know, really want to promote with the film project that you recently?
Yeah, so my first film, Deux, that means two in French, and I made it in France about a year and a half ago now. And it's actually really interesting to think about it now, because when I was in my apartment in Paris, they were just passing this legislation in France allowing for homosexual marriage or same-sex marriage, and then they repealed it, and I don't know, there was this whole thing. But I lived in the gay neighborhood of Paris, and so I was there when they were having these massive parties, and I was there for sort of this you know, France trying to embrace equality in relationships, and here I was wanting to create this dance piece that challenged the status quo. And I really feel that it's so important that we have media that reflects back this equality, that reflects back this new paradigm, because media influences us so much. You know, we're just not even
Right.
aware of it. So I grew up as a classical contemporary dancer, and I became aware that, hey, how come on the stage, even with all these ballets that are being modernized and all this modern art, we still see heteronormative love on the stage. We see men and women playing out these love stories over and over, and I thought, what does it look like if we see two women lovers on stage, or two men lovers on stage? And so that was kind of how this piece started to develop, and then it, you know, a lot of people got behind it and felt really passionate about the project, the movement, the choreography, but also this message, and creating this in a film. And now the film, I think, is in 4 film festivals to date. So we're really excited that it's being so welcomed by the LGBTQ community. And hopefully there'll be more and more films like it made. You know, what I made is really just just like a small little drop in the pool of what could happen, I think.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's really great that it's getting recognition. And so I was wondering also, in terms of like, what do you see as like other projects that in the future that you may possibly be your next thing? Like, what does these other things that you want to be involved with look like?
Well, I definitely have another book that I'm working on, and that's been really fun to start sort of just being in that flow. I think that when a book comes to life, that it really comes through you, kind of like a baby, or it's like, it's not something that I think up and construct. I really just let it flow, and then I write down ideas, and I sort of ride those waves of inspiration, and I feel like life pulls to me all of the pieces that I need for that. So I feel like that's sort of in the works. And then as far as films go, I would love to continue to make films, especially with dance, and even expanding beyond. I mean, Deux is 2 male lovers, 2 women lovers, and a man and a woman, and even that is outdated, you know. And that's what's so fun to me, that I made that film just a year and a half ago, and already we're sort of beyond that. Like, oh yeah, there's same-sex marriage is legalized. Like, okay, what's next? You know, now it's like transgender, and that's the big thing in the media, and you know, and so who knows what will be next. But I love sort of responding to this shift in consciousness that's happening, you know, in our culture, in this country. I think it's really fun to make art that's really a reflection of what's happening right now.
So if there's something that you would recommend for folks who are looking to kind of, you know, grow as a creative entrepreneur and artist, what kind of things have you found really valuable for you, like when you first started developing projects and started getting involved in what you've been working on?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. I mean, I would say for me, what worked was to make money using technology, because it really enabled me to move to Europe. It enables me to have a lot of free time to work on projects, you know. So I sell products online. I work with clients over Skype. You know, when you cut out that whole driving to the office thing and working for someone else, and you know, you use technology for reminders and all of that, it frees up all of this time. And then I think with your time, you just pursue what you love. And again, it's not about figuring it out. It's just about doing like where your inspiration is right now, and it might not, it probably won't be perfect, and you probably, you know, like for me, I was looking through your questions for this interview, and I think one of the questions was like, what has been the most difficult thing, and or the difficult part of your journey? And I thought, like, God, just my own mind, you know, just my own feelings of like, oh, I wish that were better, and also living in this world where everything is on the internet and everything feels so public. It's like, oh God, you can't hide anything. You know, you can't hide anything. Like, yeah, I made that. Yeah, the cinematography could have been better. Oh yeah, the writing could have been better. Or, you know, but it's like, okay, but you just move forward and you just like keep being better, and you know that you are becoming better because you keep learning from all of your projects and all the things you go after.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that as an artist, you never stop creating. You're constantly, you know, creating not only different works of art, but also you're within yourself. You're constantly growing and developing yourself, and that's, you know, probably the ultimate artwork is how you shape your own growth as an artist. And I think that's really, like a key part of, for every creative entrepreneur is finding that, what keeps them going into the next thing. So,
Yeah.
like, what would you say is like kind of in terms of the challenges though, like what has been so far your biggest challenge that's kind of, at the same time helped you in your growth though?
Well, I think getting things funded, finding the money
Mm.
for projects. I talked about funding my own projects with my work. But yeah, when you get going on a project, especially making a film, there's just always some new expense. You're like, oh no. And then working with dancers, my first film, part of the reason I danced in it, I didn't want to dance in it, and also,
Hmm.
that was a lot of hats to wear. But
Right.
I danced in it for two reasons. One, because it was one less person to pay, and second, because I was playing a lesbian, and I didn't know any lesbian female dancers, and I didn't know how many women would be open to doing that. So I was like, okay, well maybe I can cross my fingers and find one, and then if I'm the other one, then that'll work. So it was yeah, finding the money for the second film was very difficult because I had more dancers,
Hmm.
and more dancers require more rehearsals, and yeah, just more people to pay. So
Right.
but looking back at my Kickstarter campaign for my first film, I mean, again, you learn so much about how I could have raised money better, and then also again looking to technology to how I could improve things. I didn't really need to use that really expensive camera, or now people are making films with their iPhones, so
Hmm.
maybe next time I don't need all those crew members and all of that, and but again, you live and learn, and so I think the money part is a big part of it, and I think I might rush into things, get really passionate and really like, let's do this now. Like, I have to do this now because I feel it. And it'd probably be better to like slow down a little bit and maybe, I don't know, budget better and think through some pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Is just like you said, it's a learning process, and really, you don't fully know, especially going to new territory, all the different pieces that's involved and all the different things that could possibly happen and stuff. And really, yeah, the only real learning is through doing, especially I think, as a creative and stuff, because that's also again part of the creative process is the exploration and discovering. And I think that's also what makes it fun. It's definitely, otherwise otherwise it's just office work, right, or something
Yeah.
routine, or kind of, and
It's
that's really,
true.
yeah.
It's true. It's fun and painful, and that's like a part. That's that whole pain
Hmm.
pleasure thing, right? It's like the most pleasure. It's so pleasurable to make a film and be working with all these artists. And I mean, I was high for weeks making those films, and I was
Hmm.
high for weeks making my book. And then at the same time, you're in the editing room going, crap, like I didn't get the footage I needed, and I didn't
Oh.
see that, or this person, like oh God, there's just so many moments that are so painful where you're like, oh God, I wish I like would have known better. But again, that's like you said, part of the fun, and you just keep learning and keep moving forward.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Lauren. I really appreciate you coming on, and definitely. So right now, what would you like for folks to know about that? It's coming up. Was it the book that, or is that ready yet, or is it
Oh yeah,
the film book?
actually, the book is. I just realized that it's tomorrow. The book has been out for
Oh,
one
wow.
year. I released it August 7th of 2014. So yes, the year anniversary is tomorrow, so they can learn more about the
Congratulations.
book. Thank you
Okay.
at thenewrulesofsex.com. And then my film De, they can. There's a link here on this page for that, but they can also
Yeah.
check it out if they're here in Los Angeles. It's going to be at the Long Beach Q Film Festival next
Awesome.
month, and you can find us on Facebook as well.
Super. Thanks again, Lauren, and definitely we'll share the links. And thanks for everybody who's joined us for this time. Join us next week. We're going to have a filmmaker friend who shares about how he helps artists with shooting their reels, and we'll see you then.